everybody, it's Eric Pappenfuss. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day, and today we're going to talk about modern literary first editions. How to collect them, how to care for them, how to value them. And it's really exciting because we have one of the most valuable first editions that literally walked in the door to Midtown Scholar during our open book buying hours just this past week. But first, let's talk about modernity. Some believe that modern firsts really don't start till after World War I. Some say it has to be a 20th century book, but I tend to agree with Ernest Hemingway, who said quite famously that all modern literature comes from just one book by Mark Twain. It's the best book we've had. All American writing comes from that. There was nothing before. There has been nothing since. And do you know what that book was, Amanda?
Tom Sawyer?
Tom Sawyer's a good guess, but it is Tom Sawyer's friend, the late, great Huckleberry Finn. Now, if you know the Midtown Scholar, you know on Thursdays we have open book buying hours, and anyone can stop by and bring a book for us to look at. This happens, you can also make an appointment or send us a list or photos by email, but you can walk in at any time on Thursday. And a gentleman from South Central PA who had had this book for over 35 years came with a big bag of books to sell us last week. And he started out sort of testing us. He gave us some lesser books to potentially purchase. And once we'd purchased those, he pulled out the big statement, which is, and by the way, out in the car, I've got a first edition of Huckleberry Finn. Are you interested in seeing that? And I said, oh, yes, please, because it's an amazing book. And he brought it in, and we're going to talk about that book. One of the things you're going to notice, though, is that I decided to get a custom clamshell case made for this copy of Huckleberry Finn. And this is my first bit of advice. If you've got a fragile, especially a 19th century cloth-bound first edition, you may want to get yourself a collector's case made. These cases, they cost about $200, so the book has to have a fairly high value to be worth it. But I've had Tony in Lancaster make us cases, for instance, for Lolita, which was originally issued in 2 volumes in paperback, but it looks really good in a case. It's otherwise very fragile. Ulysses is the same way. And some books like Mark Twain, you can find on the market sort of standard made cases. This one came from Canada. Although it costs $200, it probably can increase the value of your book because not only will it protect the condition, but I think when just generally asking for it, collectors like them. So I think it's easily worth what you're paying for it. When you open up this clamshell, you can see it's made to fit Huckleberry Finn, and there is the great Huckleberry Finn first edition. Now, when he said he had a first edition, I was skeptical because there are a number of things which the book has to have to be truly considered a first edition. And I'm going to walk you through those. And one of them, however, is not the cover, because when you see the cover, this is the classic green Huckleberry Finn that was printed. It also was printed in several other types of bindings. And we discussed binding leather in last week's Buy Day. Well, Huckleberry Finn was originally sold by subscription. So traveling salespeople would go to your door and say, would you like to order a copy of Mark Twain's new book? Oh, what book is that? Huckleberry Finn? Sure, I'll take it. Well, you could have it in the standard green, or you could get it in what they called library binding, which was sheep. Remember, we saw sheep leather last week. Or you could get fancy binding, which was Morocco 3/4, which is the pebbled goat. Or you could actually get it bound in blue. And the reason they had it bound in blue is because that would match your Tom Sawyer, which had previously been bound in blue. Blue, however, did not sell well. Do you know why it didn't sell well, Amanda? It's an interesting story. Think about it for a minute. What would blue be associated with in the 1880s?
The Union?
Yeah, the Union Army. And this was a book that they wanted to sell in the South, and people would not buy blue. So green was by far the most common. In terms of quantities, there were about 2,500 that ended up getting bound in sheep, 500 in the fancy Morocco, about 500 in blue, and then about 9,500 in green. But they're all considered true firsts, and actually collectors really like the green. This is considered the quintessential Huckleberry Finn. Now, if you open it up, the first thing you notice about the book is that it is copyright 1884, but on the title page, it says 1885. And usually when identifying first editions, that's a dead giveaway that you don't have a first edition. And of course, with every book, there tends to be a series of exceptions. And what happened was they had prepared the book and they were actually able to print it and get it out earlier than they thought. They originally thought it was going to be 1885. So the copyright originally said 1885. They changed it to 1884 at the last minute, at the end of 1884, so that they could get the book out earlier. But they didn't change or have retypeset the title page. So in this case, the publication copyright date does not match the title page. Then as you sort of go through it, you notice a couple interesting things that indicate you have a first edition. There's some typos in the book which Twain corrected at a later point. For instance, it says that the title for chapter 6, Huck decided to leave. Well, Twain changed that and meant to have that say Huck decides to leave in present tense. And tense is important because this book is really all about the vernacular. There's a very famous opening line in Huckleberry Finn, which we can turn to for a minute. And before I show you the opening line, let me tell you what the opening line used to be. It started out by saying, "You don't know me." That was what Twain wrote in his notes first. And then he said, "You will not know me," changing it from to the future tense. But then in the final version, he changed it to the vernacular and it says, "You don't know about me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, but that ain't no matter." And that's one of the very famous ways in which, as he wrote the book, he sort of transformed it into American vernacular. So that's indicative of the first. Another interesting thing is when they rushed out the first edition, they made some errors in the location of illustrations. So if you look here, Amanda, in the title page, you can see it says "Him and Another Man." This illustration is supposed to be on page 88, but when you get to it, it's actually on page 87. And also, as you go a little bit further on in the book, you will see that there's a typographical error on page 57, which says basically, "and ripped a hole in the bottom of it with the was." But the printer put it backwards. It was supposed to be "ripped the hole in the bottom of it with the saw." So these were corrected in later editions, and that's how you can tell that these points identify that it is a first edition. I'll just show you one more thing, Amanda. This book was electrotyped, which meant that they would prepare the entire page of print, then they would take a mold of it, and then they would use that mold to print the pages. And page 155 is missing a number. And that's not because it fell off, as some people think, like a loose piece of type got lost, because it was all one sheet. It's because it wasn't there in the original print. So in future printings of this, they add the 5 back in. It doesn't quite match, but that's how you can tell that that's a later and not a first. So these are all indicative of a true first printing of one of the great works of literature. What's particularly interesting about Huckleberry Finn is its value. If you look at this sort of NASDAQ-like chart, Amanda, you can see back when it was published in 1885, by 1964, it had sold 10 million copies and was already worth a couple $100, and then it begins to go up in the 80s and then up in the 90s, and you get up here to 2022 and it's way up here in terms of a graph of thousands of dollars. So I don't know what a better bet is investing in Huckleberry Finn or the stock market. I don't know, but pretty cool book, that's for sure. Also, Huckleberry Finn quite famously was banned when it came out by many different libraries, and Mark Twain's response to that was, "Oh good, we'll sell another 25,000 copies." I wanted to contrast Huckleberry Finn just quickly with a modern first edition, and I have the most modern of first editions that we have downstairs, a Stephen King copy of It. This is the book which encouraged publishers to start printing massive print runs before publication. They actually wildly underestimated the print run for It, and they had to double it in the last days before the book came out. They printed 800,000 copies of that. Quick trivia question, Amanda. Who has sold more books in his lifetime, Stephen King or Mark Twain?
I'm going to say Mark Twain.
Unfortunately, it's Stephen King. Even though we've sold 20 million copies of Huck Finn,
in his
Stephen
lifetime.
King has sold 350 million books. And finally, a funny book for this week. In keeping with first impressions, it is Jane Austen for Dummies. I love this book because it's really not for dummies at all. It's a fascinating book. It teaches you how to dance. It teaches you how to court. It teaches you all the things you need to know. But it also tells the story of Jane Austen's first book, which she called First Impressions, which eventually became Pride and Prejudice. But when she sent it to the publisher for the first time, they sent it back to her unopened with a rejection. First Impressions, Jane Austen. Jane Austen for Dummies, our funny book of the week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week and every week on Buy Day Friday.